Idé Weré Weré Idé Weré Weré.
Hello and welcome to Conversations with Mother Earth, brought to you by Grounded Press. My name is Dana Petrovic, and each week my guest and I explored one aspect of Mother Earth and the gifts that she gives us. We also discussed why these gifts are so precious and why we should value them. We got you curious? Good. We love curiosity. Let's start. We are almost at the end of the series, as this is a review session, and next week we will have a grand finale. Make sure you join us next week as well. So what is Conversations with Mother Earth? Conversations with Mother Earth is a weekly podcast where we covered 24 different topics. Some of these topics are tangible ones like chocolate or soil or trees that we can touch and feel, while the other ones are more inspirational, inspired by Mother Earth herself very often, like poetry or dance or sculpture. It is a journey around the world, and I am privileged to have spoken to 25 extraordinary human beings. You will see during this review that I'll be taking you to far away places virtually, because my speakers either live or work or hail from different places on this beautiful planet of ours. Who are they? Let's start. The first episode was with a CEO from the UK. She grew up in Argentina, though, and her work brings her very often to Ecuador. I'm talking about the episode, the very, very first episode from Chocolate with Love with Galia Orme. In this episode, we talk about the goodness of raw cacao. What's love got to do with it, and how to put the cacao bean together again in a recipe. You will discover this towards the end of the episode. Galia's company sources organic cacao ethically from Ecuador, and the whole value chain is closely supervised and monitored by her. Have fun with this lovely conversation. The next speaker lives in Canada, but her roots are in Nigeria. I am talking about best-selling author Yejide Kilanko. In this episode, we talk about why stories matter, why words matter, and how the stories are connected with Mother Earth in her native Nigeria, a very diverse, populous nation. Yejide is a Yoruba woman, and coincidentally, just before airing this episode, we got our theme song, Idé Weré Weré, approved by the artist Deva Premal and Miten. We are very grateful for this piece of art, sung in the Yoruba language. My next guest lives in London and has many friends. Some of her friends fly, some crawl, and she discovers them all in parks in her proximity in London. I'm talking about the bug woman of London, Viv Palmer. And this episode will bring you closer to a variety of new creatures. You will discover that the size does not matter. They are all very important. In the next episode, actually, I don't need to travel far, as Pablo Borstein is based in Shenzhen, mainland China, as I am as well, and Mariko Draiton is in Hong Kong. However, Mariko is originally from Japan and Pablo is from Argentina. We talk about dance and specifically about tango argentino, which Pablo teaches in Shenzhen, and flamenco, as Mariko is a performer and teacher in Hong Kong. I am privileged to call both of them my teachers. Join us in this episode and we will roll you around, I promise. The next episode brings us to Poland, to a fellow children's book author, Wojciech Krajkowski. We talk about trees, as we both are tree lovers, and in this episode, we connect trees. I highly recommend his best-selling book, Trees: A Rooted History, not only for its great text, but also for stunning illustrations done by Piotr Socha. It's a joy for the whole family. The next journey is an inward journey, where we talk about breath. And there is a present hidden in this episode. Check it out. In the next episode, we travel to Kenya, more precisely to University of Nairobi, where my speaker is a professor. I'm talking about Professor Nancy Karanja, who is an expert in her field. She literally opens our eyes to the variety of life under our feet. It will be a very grounding conversation. The next episode is partially in Shenzhen again, as Dr. Mengwen Chu is a junior fellow at the Southern University of Science and Technology, SUSTEC, here in Shenzhen. But the other conversation partner is based in Morocco, in Bali, Malal, where he is a professor. We bridge two old cultures in this conversation, namely the Arabic and Chinese poetry. It is a very inspirational conversation, and at the end, we share our favorite poems. You will discover that some of your favorite poets got mentioned in this episode. Tune in. For the next episode, we travel to one of my favorite places on this planet, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, where I talk with His Excellency, Dr. Yassin Kayat, who is a former Minister of Environment of Jordan and is responsible for, is a Director of Environmental Affairs at the Hashemite Royal Court at the moment. We talk in this episode not only about the environmental importance of life under the surface, but also the economic one. The guest in the next episode lives in New York, but he grew up in Germany. And it's actually serendipity that brought us together. Believe me, in true sense of the word. He's also the author of the book, The Serendipity Mindset. I'm talking about Professor Christian Busch. And in this episode, we discuss why we should grab chances when they come our way. My next speaker is calling the West Coast her home. And she says that without wind, everything eventually dies. I'm talking about Rene, a best-selling author and a practical shaman who has written a beautiful book about the importance of wind. We talk about it in this episode. We talk about the outer winds, but also the inner winds, and how to calm the inner storm. This is going to be an episode that you can breeze through easily. The next episode brings us to Syria. And this is the most moving episode of the series. I'm talking with the war refugee and peace activist, Mohammed Najim, who has been working with Angelina Jolie in the area of human rights. At the age of 15, Mohammed Najim became a war reporter, filming the unspeakable events in his country, Syria, and sharing them with the world. This is an episode that will move you deeply. The next 12 episodes start with a conversation with the Reinvention guru. She lives in California, but is originally from Kazakhstan. And I am talking actually, of course, about Dr. Nadia Zhezhembayeva, in our business world known as the Reinvention guru. 2 episodes back, as you have noticed, we talked about change when we related to wind and the importance of change. We return to that topic in this episode. In addition, we also talk about creativity and how companies can reinvent themselves. This is another episode with a present hidden in it. Take a look. And now we are going to travel to Bali, to the beautiful island of Bali in Indonesia, where we talk about the batik textile. It's a very particular textile. And in this episode with Putu Arnani Oprandi, you will discover how much work goes into one single piece of batik textile. Will give us even more reason to value it more in the future. Allow us to stun you with beauty in this episode. The next episode is back in Shenzhen again, because the speaker is a fellow professor here at a different university, at the Shenzhen University. I'm talking about Professor Xiongbo Shi, who is an expert in calligraphy. He wrote academic articles in this field. This episode is a combination of presence and Zoom meetings. And you will discover that is an episode of mindfulness and meditation. especially when you watch Xiongbo perform calligraphy writings. You will discover the intricate movements of the brush on a crispy white paper and the trail that the black ink leaves behind. For the next episode, we travel to the Netherlands. But my speaker has roots in Indonesia, and he also does quite a bit of work in Senegal, and a few other places, because the foundation he works for fights slums in different parts of the world. We are talking about architecture with Kriya Dojo Adin Hiragrad. In this episode, we will ask you what home means to you. We discuss what home means to us. Is it only 4 walls made of the bricks? Or is it way, way more? When do you call a place home? Tune in to find out in this episode. For the next episode, we traveled to Mexico, where our speaker currently lives. He is from the States, and he is known around the world for his work in the area of breath and health. I'm talking about the breath legend, Dan Brulé. As he says in this episode, if you type in breathwork, his name is the first one to show up. You will discover that breath is life, just like Chinese call it qi, and India you hear the term prana. In our world, breath is life, and of course has a huge impact on our health. In this episode, you will discover why emotions flow. Tune in. Speaking of breathing in, I like the smell of rain. I like to breathe it in. And that's why we dedicate one session to rain. I like the sound of rain too. The next speaker is based in Zhuhai, not far from where I am in mainland China, but he is originally from New Zealand. I'm talking about Professor Thomas Huggins. In this episode, we talk about the importance of rain and the beauty of rain, as we both love rain, but also about the other side, when rain becomes destructive. And this is the focus of Thomas' work. This is a refreshing episode. For the next episode, we stay in New Zealand, but we also travel to other Polynesian islands and even Hawaii, because my next speaker talks about tattoos. I'm talking about Roberto Gemori from Tattoo Tribes. This is an episode that surprised even me, because I never considered of including tattoos as one of the topics until I started researching Maoris, New Zealand, and the importance of tattoos in their culture. You will discover in this episode that there is a strong connection between Mother Earth and tattoos in Polynesian cultures. This episode will truly go under your skin. Have you ever wondered how a true globetrotter, true world traveler looks like? somebody who has been to so many places around the world and always feels at home no matter where he or she is. Well, that was the case with my next speaker, who is from California, but who also lives in Shenzhen. This episode was filmed completely in person, and he provided some additional video material to illustrate his work. His work brings him very often to places like Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Mozambique, Zambia, Brazil, and so on and so on. The episode is with Andrew Lucas, and we talk about gems. Gems are loved. I assume that you love gems. In this episode, we talk about that aspect, but we also talk about the negative side of extraction and trade with gems, as Andrew Lucas has seen it all. This is an enlightening episode. Tune in. The next author is again from New York, but his roots are in Pakistan. And he makes sculptures from plastic waste, from plastic bags, for example, discarded plastic bags. I'm talking about Khalil Chishti. In this episode, he shares with us what that has to do with his upbringing in Pakistan. And we talk about the content and the form. It's a very formative episode. The next episode will energize you because it's about coffee. More precisely, about Quixote coffee from Germany, Hamburg, Germany. They source their coffee from Colombia, Kenya, and a few other places. Matt Rubuk was my interview guest speaker in this episode, and you will discover that we do not need to pay a higher price for a good, ethically sourced organic coffee. Their business model allows everyone along the value chain to be better off. Tune in for this awakening conversation. The next episode, we're almost at the end, the next episode is with a speaker who is based in Singapore, but she grew up in the UK. London is home, as she said before our conversation. We talk about diversity, or to be more precise, about the lack of diversity in the venture capital funding. Because only, or actually, she said less than 3% of female founders get venture capital funding. Tanya Rolfe has a long legal career in which she discovered certain discrepancies and lack of diversity, which prompted her to research the issue a little bit deeper. Today, she's a co-founder of Sophia, an online platform that offers financial education to women and also financial support. It's a very supportive conversation. And we are at the end of the series, back with the topic of love. If you recall, the very first episode was From Chocolate with Love. And in the last episode, we are back to love, or more precisely, self-love with Dr. Joy Martina, best-selling author and coach. She and her husband, Roy Martina, are known around the world for their work and for helping people get empowered and reach their targets. In this episode, we talk about the importance of love, more importantly, self-love, how that is linked with self-confidence, and how we can support each other or our fellow humans, how humanity can help each other with more love. You're up to another lovely conversation. So these were 24 episodes, and this is the way, or these are the places that we visited at the same time. You want to see them all together one more time? Here they are, along with the theme song, Idé Weré Weré.
Idé Weré Weré nita ocho. Idé Weré Weré. Idé Weré Weré nita ocho. Idé Weré Weré nita ya. Uchakini ba nita ocho. Cheke, 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 nitaya. Idé Weré Weré. Idé Weré Weré nita ocho. Idé Weré Weré. Idé Weré Weré nita ocho. Idé Weré Weré nitaya. Uchakini ba nita ocho. Cheke, 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 nitaya. Idé Weré Weré. Idé Weré Weré.
If you liked the episodes, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, where you will find more materials and you will find all the episodes. And don't forget, join us for the grand finale next week. Thank you for joining us today. I wish you a great time ahead. And until the last episode next week, see you then.